every year is quite the learning curve, and this year was no different. Actually, it was very different, but different in a learned a lot of things kind of way. So I want to talk a little bit about some things that I have learned this year. Specifically this year, going through a couple of really big challenges, like mentally and just like physically, and not physically, just more mentally. Anyway, so this year has been interesting. Specifically this year has been interesting for two, maybe three main reasons. So the first thing that has been really interesting this year is that my business has, or at least TBT, has not grown at the rate that I normally have it grow. So I have been doubling or almost doubling my store every year, and this year it has drastically slowed down to the point where I just today, November 28th, passed last year's income. Normally that would have happened already like in September or like a long time ago. And so it's been really interesting this year because even though like actually my sales have been really steady, it's been kind of hard mentally to push myself to do more and to do all sorts of things. And it's been really a year of like trying to figure out what's gonna work and how I'm gonna move forward and things like that. So that's kind of like one thing that has happened, just like my expectation being so much higher than what reality has been with the business side of things. The second thing is that I do still teach full-time, and this year I got a new job. I knew actually even before this year started that I was going to be looking for a new job. I decided that in the second week of school last year. I decided I was going to be looking for a new job, and so I did that, and I ended up going through that whole process of looking for jobs and stressing about jobs and preparing for interviews and doing interviews and waiting to hear back, and then like, you know, getting all the pieces moving, packing up my classroom, going, you know, all the anxiety of starting a new job and going somewhere new and like starting over essentially, and just like all of those things that have come along with that has been like a monumental, massive thing that has weighed really hard on my brain and my mental self. And it's just been, you know, kind of a lot. So between the business and my like teaching life being drastically changed, another thing this year that happened is I didn't do nearly as much planning or nearly as much really anything as I normally do. And I did that because I didn't know if I was gonna find a job, when I would find a job, if it was gonna be a part-time job or a full-time job, or if I was just gonna quit all the way, because I was at the point where I was like, I'm not coming back here, even if it means I take the business full time. And so I had a lot of thoughts going through my brain, and I didn't, because that was like a big priority and goal of mine, I didn't plan and schedule as much for like the business, if that kind of makes sense. And so like things were just a little bit wonky kind of all year between that. I felt a little bit like almost misguided of like, I don't like not really knowing which way to go and where to go. And so this year things will be changed. But with all three of those things happening, just like a lot of changes, a lot of weirdness happening, I learned a lot this year. So I wanted to share these things with you because some of them might be helpful to you as well. They're probably not going to be anything that you'd expect them to be. So I'm excited to see, just, you know, share the things that I've been learning, because that's basically what this whole YouTube channel is about. And yeah, so let's chat. These are not in really any particular order, but the first one is getting greater clarity on my long-term goals. So even though this year felt a little bit like wishy-washy, not sure what I wanted to do, in all of these things, I have been able to really think forward and think long-term and think about what I want long-term and what I want my life to look like and how I want to do things and just all sorts of different things. And there's a lot of aspects of my life that I have kind of rethought. A big part of this is because, like I mentioned, I didn't know if I was going to be working full-time or part-time or not at all. And I wasn't sure at the beginning of the year, like what my life was going to look like. since I got my full-time job, I did kind of make decisions based on that. Basically, I was like, okay, well, if I'm gonna take this job, I'm gonna stay for a couple of years. And so having like that part ironed out, and then getting the job and liking my job, getting those things kind of ironed out have really helped me to kind of like see forward for the next couple of years and kind of what I think the next couple of years are going to bring. Obviously, life is unexpected, as we all know if you lived through COVID. So I'm not like banking on the things that I have been planning and thinking about, but having things just like a tentative plan for the next couple of years is really helpful. And then having that plan also has given me greater clarity on how I should do different things in different situations so that I can, you know, go to that long-term goal. So a really random, silly example of this is that I, you know, in crunching numbers and all sorts of things, we've lived in this house for 6 years? 5 years? I don't know, something like that. And so we both, husband and I, were kind of getting to the point where we're like, I'm kind of sick of this place. And so I started looking, you know, like, do we want to move to a new house? Where should we live? And like looking at different things, looking at different areas, even just looking on Zillow, and knowing like it wasn't going to be this year, but just, you know, seeing what was out there. I've determined that I don't want to move anytime soon. And so because of that, that has led me to my DIY journey, where now I'm putting up picture frame molding and painting rooms and like doing all these things because I want to make the house more attractive and I want to enjoy my house a lot more. And so having that as like, you know, that part of my life figured out has helped me to gain greater clarity in like what I should do in my free time. Like redoing my house. So like little things like big or little things like that, just having like some things ironed out has helped me to come up with better ideas for what we're gonna do in the future. So greater clarity on long-term goals, even though this year was kind of like, it just felt really floopy. I just felt very like all over the place, which is not my favorite place to be. Speaking of that, this year I learned some new skills, and specifically I learned that you can learn pretty much anything from YouTube. So if you are looking to do something, if you think, it would be cool if I bought a saw and I redid this room, or if you want to try a new hobby or whatever, like you can totally do it. You are totally capable, and the internet has so much information that you can find anything that you need to find, and you can do it. It might be hard, you might have some accidents, but you can totally do it. And so that was really eye-opening to me, like being able to do something that is very outside of my comfort zone, that is totally different, that turned out really well, has been really awesome this year. So I've really been enjoying that, just like learning new skills and just kind of realizing you can do anything you set your mind to. Okay. The third one is this year we really started to emphasize experiences. So specifically, husband and I, you may or may not know, well, I'm a music teacher, first of all. Husband and I met in college. We actually met in college choir. Our first date that I got tricked into going on, which is a story for another time. Maybe that'll be our rap and chat discussion this year. But the first date that we went on was to a Chanticleer concert, which is a choir. We also we had a lot of music dates, and that was something we did a lot when we were first dating, and because we're students, things were cheaper and we could often find people who would give us tickets because we were students. Then we got jobs and got busy and didn't get that student discount anymore, and so we really hadn't been doing as many things. And so this year we really got back into like going to shows, and it has just been so much fun. Like just so much fun. And it's not the cheapest thing ever, but it's just been really great to like pretty much once a month-ish we'll go see a musical, or we'll go see a quartet, or we'll go to the orchestra, or like different things like that. And it's just been so much fun to have those experiences together and to prioritize those things. And then usually we'll like go to dinner as well along with it. And so having those things that like bring us together has been great, but just really prioritizing like experiences of like those kind of things. And just new experiences and different things. Like we went to Boston this year and that was new and that was exciting and different. And even little things like for New Year's, we're going to go rent a cabin at a state park. And it's not fancy, but it's something that like we're really looking forward to. And so especially I think coming out of COVID, just looking for those ways that we can like have experiences together and really prioritizing that has just been really fun. And it also gives you something to look forward to, even though it's not something that you do all the time. It's like, oh, we have something exciting coming up, and that's been really nice as well. The next one, no, what's that? Number 4. Number 4 is that if you work really hard on a project, it can pay off really well. Because even though my TPT shop, actually partially because my TPT shop wasn't doing very well, I started working my butt off on creating a new course for music teachers. And I launched that in, I think it was March. It was not a great time for launching courses. And I knew that, but I was like, you know what? I want to do it anyway because I just want to get it done. I've been wanting to do it for years. And so I finally did it, and I worked so hard and I put so many hours in, and I was definitely repaid for all of that I worked on this year, because it has paid a lot. It was the biggest launch I have ever done, and then I relaunched it. I did like launch and then like closed group, and then a few months later tweaked some stuff, relaunched it, and both times it made more money than any launch I have ever done before. It's continued to sell. I do need to work on my funnel to make it sell a little bit more, but it has just really paid off, like literally. And I've also looked at that in my TPT shop. So I've been looking at like what are like really big projects that I can do. So I posted like at Halloween time, I did a Google Slides lesson that I knew was gonna do really well, and it like blew all my expectations out of the water. And so just really like thinking about how I can make something that's really good, and I can work really hard on it, even though it feels really hard in the moment. Those are things that pay off. And so as I'm looking forward, I will still have, you know, little things here and there. I have like a group of products that I am planning to launch in the next couple of weeks that are smaller, but I'm long-term thinking like, what are big things, what are units that I can do, what are big projects that I can work on that are going to then pay off the way that big projects do. And so just kind of shifting my focus, instead of having 8,000 teeny tiny products, because I'll probably hit 1,000 next year, but just trying to think like, what can I do that's really going to help like long-term big things. Another thing I learned this year is more of a rediscovery, and that is that I definitely rediscovered the joy in teaching. I love teaching in general, and honestly even last year I loved teaching most of my classes, not all of the classes, but most of the classes, and I was miserable the rest of the year, like the rest of the time. And I would tell my husband, even during COVID, I was like, I really enjoy the time that I spend actively teaching, and I hate the rest of my day. And that was one of my biggest issues with the school where I was, is I spent a lot of my day not teaching. I spent a ton of my day doing lunch. I had 2 lunch duties a day. I had to take all the classes to the bathroom. I had to like walk kids across the school, and I had morning duty and afternoon. Like there was just so much time that I wasn't actually teaching. And then we had a lot of those things where it's like, oh, today we're doing something totally different, and I would just become a babysitter, and it was just not okay with me. So this year I have really rediscovered like the joy of teaching and how much fun it is and how much I like it. And especially with not being miserable for the rest of my day, I have really been able to like enjoy myself, and that has been really great. And even if you're not in a like going to a new school situation, I would highly recommend that you find ways to insert more joy into your teaching life, because it just, your whole life just gets so much better. I cannot explain, like I just, even like, yes, it's still work and it's still tiring and stuff, but I have not felt that same level of like absolute exhaustion that I used to feel constantly. That alone has made like the biggest difference this year in my absolute everything. Kind of piggybacking off of that, something that I have had to learn, especially while I was still at my old school, is really managing my emotions better. Because there are some times where you are miserable for large portions of the day, and you just gotta figure out a way to still be happy. And that might be scheduling fun things, and it might be going to see musicals, or it might be, you know, whatever it is. But I really had to look inside of myself and think like, okay, how can I make this better with things that I can control, because I can't control everything. And so I really had to think through and figure out like, how can I make this better, and how can I manage my emotions better when I find things out at the last minute that are really frustrating, because I had a lot of really frustrating things that happened last year, and conversations that I had, and things that were supposed to happen that didn't, or weren't supposed to happen that did, and just all sorts of things. So when frustrating things would come up again and again and again, things happen, and you got to figure out a way to deal with it. And so I really learned this year some strategies for managing my emotions better. I hope I don't have to implement all of them, but I really learned like the value of a good solid morning routine, because I found that if I had that morning routine, I was just in such a better place for the day than if I didn't have my morning routine that day. It was like I was starting behind the start line, and it was just downhill from there. I learned how to like really truly calm myself down when I was really stressed. I learned how to deal with overwhelm, and like there's just so many things that I had to figure out in that way. And sometimes it's as easy as a snack and a nap, and sometimes it's like mind over matter. You just gotta do something. There's so many things that I had to learn for that category, but overall I would say I really had to master my own emotions and work to be that calm, cool, collected Becca that you are used to. I hope that's what you get off of me. On a much different note, another thing that I really learned the value of this year is planning ahead, specifically in the business, specifically with like products and blog posts and content and all that sort of stuff. This year, y'all know I love seasonal products, and I have a really bad habit of making seasonal products like during the season that they are in, like making Christmas products and posting them, you know, the week before Christmas and things like that, where like you're not gonna sell very much. And so this year I really made it a priority that I was not gonna do that anymore, and if it was too close to the season, I was not gonna post it, and it is what it is. Because of that, I have then been looking forward and been doing a lot better about like, I posted my new like Halloween games in like August, like just really looking forward and doing those things, and it has made a huge difference, because it mentally, emotionally, it's less stressful because you're not on a tight deadline. You're not like, I have to get this video out today, or you know, I have to, you know, do XYZ. And then it also gives you time to actually like do the things right. So like if I post a new product, I can also make a video about it. And so like I have those things, and I have the time to do product photography. I made all of them, and I couldn't do my product photography for like 2 weeks. And it was not a big deal because we were still like 2 months out, so it didn't matter. And so like the level of calm that I felt about that was so much better. And then just knowing what was going on and feeling like I had a plan and those kind of things, as you might have picked up, that was a big theme this year. It's just like, I want to have a plan, and I just want things to be situated. Like that was kind of my big thing, you know, because new job on top of like my school caught on fire, so that was a whole big thing last year. Everyone was fine. I mean, literally being like, what is my life gonna be? It's really the question that I grappled with this year. And so just like having a plan and just feeling more relaxed about things has been so helpful. So here is your reminder again that you should be planning ahead and working ahead, because that's what businesses do, and you're a business owner. So plan ahead, work ahead, and it's gonna be great. Great. Even just the other day I was like, oh, I should make these Christmas resources, and then I was like, Becca, December starts in 2 days. It's too late. It's too late. So we're not making those, and I just put them on the list for next year. But we can make some winter stuff. We can work on some non-seasonal things and a crazy concept. But there we are. 2 more things that I really learned this year. The next is letting things go. If you have watched my vlogs, then you know that has been the common refrain for the past like year. And it's been a big part of managing my emotions, because things would happen that would really frustrate me that I really didn't have much control over. And it's like, you can be mad about it, or you can just let it go. And sometimes that is the only option. And as much as it stinks, learning to let things go is really helpful in managing your emotions, in just having a better life and a less stressed life. And I highly recommend that you work on it. Is it easy? No, but letting things go has been really helpful. So kind of how I do this is, when I start to like work myself up, I stop and I'm like, okay, Becca, talk to yourself in third person because it creates distance. Becca, whether you're mad about this or not, this is what it is. So let's make the best of this. And what, you know, like, how can I make this good even though it doesn't feel good right now? And I'm not always prepared to do that immediately, but having things like that is really helpful. Also letting things go, like when I have that seasonal product and it's too late to post it, just letting it go instead of stressing about it and keeping on and worrying about it. Another part of letting go, I got a video editor and it has like changed my whole entire life, and it has been so much better, but I had to let go of a lot of like my controlling issues in order to do that. I also literally had to let go of like my money because I have to pay him. So like there's just a lot of layers to learning to let go, but it's hard. It's hard, but it definitely makes your life a lot better. And the last, this year, partially because honestly I wasn't making as much money as usual, partially because I didn't plan as well as I usually do, partially because I wasn't sure what was going to happen with like, you know, school and all of that, and kind of almost like reinventing my life this year essentially, you know, because new school, it's like, okay, here's a whole new chapter of what's going on. And then like I mentioned, since I took the job, I plan to stay there for a few years. And so like all of those things to be said, this year I really worked on balance in my life and not working 24/7 and not stressing all of the time. This is a horrible time to say this because next week is going to be the busiest week of my whole entire life, and I'm doing Vlogmas on top of that. But in general, other than this week right here, I really learned how to be better about balance. And so part of that for me has been figuring out a routine that works on a weekly basis essentially, and so having like a regular weekly routine. And obviously it changes when you have different things going on, but just having like a plan for what you're going to do is really helpful. I changed my weekly routine quite a bit to just like accommodate some different things. So for example, I used to come home and I would come home and like vacuum and do work and work on my computer and all those kind of things. And now instead of doing that, I usually, well, when I'm not filming, I usually come home and I'll take the dogs for a walk and I'll play my piano and I'll do those things. And then after I eat dinner, then I'll do work. Whereas before I would come home and like work, eat dinner, and then like pass out on the couch essentially. But I now chill for a little bit, then I do dinner, and then after dinner I work again, and I find that by then I have like a second wind and it's not as stressful to me. And so just like figuring out a weekly routine that works for me. I've also been not getting up quite as early. I still need to figure out like a more solid morning situation, but I haven't been waking up quite as early because I just really haven't wanted to, honestly. And a lot of it is the past couple years I have been working the business all day, all night, all the time, with the intention of I could take this thing full time. And now I could take this thing full time because I do have, like, I do make enough money for that, and I do pay myself better than my school system does, but I wasn't emotionally ready for that. And so getting a new job and kind of delaying that, like TPT being my whole career, delaying that a few years has helped to take some of the pressure off, and so I don't feel quite as like stressed. And then on top of that, I also sometimes use the business as an escape. So when I'm unhappy at work, then I come home and I work a lot, so because it's like, you know, oh well, if I do a lot of work then I'll make more money and then I can quit, you know. Does anyone else do that, or is that just me? I don't know, maybe I'm crazy. Oh well. But that's what I, you know, that's kind of how, and it's not a conscious like linear thinking, but as I look at it, I'm like, oh, this is totally what I'm doing. So having a new job has helped to lessen the stress a little bit, as well as made me reevaluate my life and, you know, kind of being okay with pushing off some bigger goals to later. If that makes sense. I still have big goals. I still want to, you know, do really well. I still want the business to grow, but it's not quite as all-consuming as it used to feel. So yeah, so that's a lot of things that I have learned this year. If you want more details about any of those, let me know in the comments or send me a DM on Instagram. It's at becca.e.davis, and I can definitely do videos that are more like centered on one thing with like really practical tips about this, that, or the other. But this is kind of like the overview of things that I've been thinking about and working on in my life, and I've really just made my life quite a bit better. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.